Hello and welcome to Policy Bazaar. I'm Arjun Bhagat, and today we are going to take the conversation forward on what the budget has in store for us and how you can leverage it to plan and save better in the new financial year. Earlier, we talked about the impact of the budget on our finances. We also learned about various schemes announced by the Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, which would help India move from the Jan Dhan financial inclusion to Jan Suraksha social security. Now, this included the likes of Universal Social Security Scheme and the pension scheme. Now, in this episode, we're going to delve deeper into the specifics of Budget 2015. And joining us in our studio is Yashish Dahiya, CEO and co-founder of PolicyBazaar. Welcome to the show, Yashish.
Hi.
Overall, it seems to be a pretty positive budget, and which is going to help India move forward. A lot of infrastructure initiatives, a lot of social security schemes which India needs. What are some of the negatives that you feel could have been addressed in this budget?
See, the budget is a directional budget. It is the first step in, one is assuming a series of years which would eventually lead us towards our conclusion. But if you look back at when the current government was formed, there were a few promises made. One was there would be some kind of universal security. Second was ease of business, as we call it. We are one of the worst countries in the world in terms of ease of business.
150 or
yeah,
something
we're
like that.
something like we're in the last quartile. We kind of come close to Zambia and countries like that, whereas countries like Singapore and the US are really in the top 3-4. The objective was to move from somewhere down there to at least the top half.
Right.
And I think fundamentally one took that away. That if you allow ease of business, and so people are free to do things, that would provide some impetus. And the second being social security would be provided to those in need of it, because without that, things get very difficult. I think there was a third thing mentioned, which was about the 100-city plan. We were going to have 100 cities and the bullet trains. And I think, if anything, the third aspect is maybe the government has decided that it's only going to follow two, not the third one.
Right, which is the
smart cities, the bullet trains, connectivity, because we have not seen anything on that front so far whatsoever. So if you come to the specifics of the budget, yes, there was an increase in excise duty, which went from 12.36 to 14%. From what I understand of people barely...
That's the service tax.
That's the service tax, sorry. The service tax, sorry. The service tax is not something people observe every day.
Right.
It going up by 1%, 1.5%.
It's being looked, the excise increase in excise and service tax is being looked towards as a little bit of a dampener as far as the budget.
It's there.
Especially the middle classes.
It is there, but I don't think everybody looks at it extremely seriously. It is a cost, and people undertake that cost when people... For the government, it is fantastic because it's a big earner of money, because expenses do happen. And the good part is, even people who earn money in black do spend money. And when they spend money, the service tax will come in. So when they have to pay the bills, the service tax will be there. So clearly there's an advantage of this service tax element, which is more universal in nature. However, we have seen no benefit going in terms of home ownership.
Right.
Today it is extremely difficult. And we are seeing this in the developed world also. So in a very developed country like the UK, there's a lot of support being given to the young to get started on what you call the property ladder.
Right.
Once one's got one property, then that property's price increases, he can sell that and buy another one or something of that sort. But the first step, today, if you look at a place like Gurgaon or Bangalore, there aren't houses available for less than 1 crore rupees.
Right.
Whereas the salaries have moved, but they haven't moved at the same pace. And I think that gap...
And interest rates continue to be pretty high.
And interest rates continue to be very high. So I think there isn't really support in terms of the first house. And I think that part of the economy is getting left out. So I would say...
So you feel that is a major area?
I think, if we look at the different areas, there's the agricultural sector, there is the manufacturing sector, there is the SME group of people, and there is what you would call the salaried class. And I think a lot of the SMEs and the salaried class are looking at buying houses in the urban world.
Right.
Because the agricultural group has got the agricultural subsidies going and nobody's touching that. That's perfectly fine. It's a very large group and that should be supported. Whereas the manufacturing part is getting their advantages in terms of slightly lower corporate tax, etc. So the big advantage coming in terms of aligning the nature of our corporate taxes with the rest of the ASEAN countries.
Right.
So most of the ASEAN countries are working between.
So we'll get to that in a bit.
I think there is really no support provided to the first-time home buyer, who is an important part of the middle class, and I would say I don't want to call them lower middle class because it's just the age.
Given that you're right, because our majority of our population is below 35 now.
It's below 35, and it's that young population as they get into jobs, if they don't have places to live in, or if they don't have the ability to buy their first house, I think that's going to become a strain on society one way or the other.
Right, and what about ATC? Because there seems to be, and I asked you this question even earlier, there seems to be this little bit of a disgruntlement in terms of, whether, no push has been given to the middle class. But there has been in some ways, because the other justification that the finance minister gave was, I increased the limit of 2 lakh to 2,50,000 less than 8 months back.
Yeah.
So does that argument really hold? Is that a consolation?
See, given how inflation has moved, and given how government pensions have moved, the pay commissions, etc., I think very little is done in terms of the tax benefits which are provided to the middle class. See, the middle class is the primary group that is paying taxes. If you look at the 3% of the people who pay taxes, I'm pretty confident.
That's less than 3 crores in this country.
That is less than 3 crore people.
Direct taxpayers.
But a bulk of the tax paid would be from the middle class. So I think middle class pays a disproportionate amount of tax compared to its income, right? Because the rich have the way to kind of structure taxes in a manner that taxes are very well managed. And I think at the other end, there is either black income or there isn't income to pay taxes on. So clearly, that group is saying we need some relief which at least keeps up with inflation. And if you look at the last 5 years, 6-7 years, it's been at 1 lakh rupees. And it's gone to 1.5 lakh rupees. But that is 50% over 7 years. That does not even keep up with inflation. Right. So I think going to a 2 lakh or a 3 lakh would be the right step. But the government is doing what is practical.
Right.
They are constrained. We don't have so much funds that we can kind of. So I think it is the least bad option, if you would. But clearly, I think it's a fair ask. The middle class is saying we are working hard. We are bringing in the taxes for the entire country. At least you can do is give us some relief, at least in line with inflation. If for the last 7-8 years we don't even get 50% increase, then there's a bit of a problem.
What about the opposition, and also a lot of the middle class and upper middle class is saying it's basically a pro-rich, pro-corporate budget. Now, I have 2 questions. One is it a pro-rich, budget? After all, they're saying that they're going to bring down the tax rates from 30% to 25%. The second is, does it in any way help, our viewers there? Even though they seem to be very concerned about the tax rates coming down for the corporates.
I would like to ask anybody, how is it pro-rich? Nothing that has happened in this budget is pro-rich. If anything, income tax on people earning more than 1 crore. Now, anybody could say that people earning more than 1 crore have ways to kind of manage their taxes anyway. But that is a problem every government in the world is facing.
Not just us.
Even the European countries are facing that. When people have incomes of more than £1 million, you've got tax structures and trust structures which basically make sure you don't pay taxes. So that is the problem the whole world is facing. I think streamlining would help. But in fact, if I was to look a bit deeper into it, the way FDI and FII has been consolidated. Remember, a lot of the rich use these exceptions within FII and FDI to kind of break the FDI ceilings, and then through lobbying, etc. So I think the government has given a very clear indication that, look, while we will move the overall limits for the industry, we are not open to this entire lobby culture of people trying to negotiate their specific terms. And I think that's a very good thing to say, that okay, it's non-popular, but we will increase the overall limit. but at the same time, we won't allow these little, nuances which allow people to get special privileges, if you would. I think from that perspective, it is powerful. The 2% tax has come in on the rich. I think removal of wealth tax was a very normal thing because, it's the most open thing. You could be paying all your taxes. You don't know what to pay on wealth tax.
Precisely, and so
Nobody knows what to
harassment of tax inspectors comes in, and that's a big concern
doing away
that
with it
people
is a
have.
fantastic thing. So I don't think it is pro-rich in any way. The reduction in corporate tax is a benefit to the working group because if companies make money, then companies can invest money.
So do we, once it's played out, once it comes down to 25%, do we actually become more competitive with our neighbors and the ASEAN group? And
see, if you, I look at some of the developed countries and their models in terms of how they have taken advantage of these. So if you look at the Dutch economy or the Irish economy, you've got Google based out of Ireland in Europe. Why is it not based out of the UK, which is a very natural place for it to be? You've got Microsoft based out of
we've
Dublin.
got Cyrus Mistry, who's an Irish citizen. Who's
an Irish. So why are all these
Tata.
companies based out of Ireland and not the UK, which is a natural home for a lot of people? I'm just very simple.
Of course.
It's a very simple thing. The UK has higher corporate tax than Ireland. Ireland has the lowest corporate tax in the Eurozone. So why would it make sense for us to increase our corporate tax and make ourselves inefficient? See, we are not in this isolated world anymore. Every company is thinking, do I set up in India or do I set up in Sri Lanka or do I set up in Singapore?
So it's a very competitive environment.
So,
and
they will all
at
set
the
up
end
in
of the
Singapore and
day,
Sri Lanka,
those
not you.
decisions affect all of us because
They affect all of us.
A company coming in does create a lot of jobs, direct or indirect. That's the moot point, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. These companies are creating not just jobs, but high-end jobs and skills, which then nurture future. So having high-end companies in manufacturing and the services come into India and invest is a fantastic thing because that is what creates the future, creates obviously the employment, but with that learning, we get the future entrepreneurs who create further employment and further intellectual property for the country. And that is necessary. Without that, how exactly does one intend to be competitive? Because competitive will mean competing with others, not competing just within our own house.
Right. And what about, the other issue that the government has talked about, people are raising it, the opposition is raising it, black money. How does that play out and how does that affect our viewer in many ways?
I think black money is something which is, I don't know how they're going to control it because it's stashed in mattresses. And unless they actually have
it's
the
not
police
just in the
going
Swiss
and-
banks.
It's not just, so I don't get this. How does black money get to the Swiss banks? It's not very, you can't really take tons of rupees from here in bags and take them outside the country and go and put them in a Swiss bank because they won't even recognize the rupee currency. So this money moves legitimately in some manner.
Right.
So there are some tax structures, there are some trust structures that are there. And I'm sure these are in common knowledge of everybody. So those structures have to be broken. And these structures, many of them are outside the Indian law.
Right.
Now, how they have to work on that, I'm not an expert in this field.
Right.
But clearly it's not the same person who's doing the house business, selling one house to the other and taking that money in that bori. That bori is getting used in India only. That bori has no way of kind of making it out.
Well, properties in India, a huge component is black money.
Is black money, but that money, I don't see how that money can reach abroad.
Right.
It's beyond me how that cash can reach abroad. So it's actually dollars trading abroad, which is our problem.
Right. Well, it's time for a short break. We're going to continue our discussion. We're also going to take questions from our viewers, Yashish. But do write to us, tweet us at Twitter at PolicyBazaar_in, email us at queries@policybazaar.com. And we'll see you shortly after this break. Keep watching Policy Bazaar.